Welcome to Harnessing the Entrepreneurial Spirit of Chiropractic with Dr. Karlos Boghosian. Dr. Boghosian practices in Hartford, Connecticut. He owns the, what was the name of your chiropractic clinic again? Capital Chiropractic Clinic. Cool. This is being put on by the Pediatric Summit, September 25th and 26th at Life University. Definitely check us out. It's going to be an amazing seminar about everything chiropractic, everything pediatrics. It's going to be amazing. So, Dr. Boghosian, how are you doing today?
Great, Caleb. Well, thank you for having me on. It's an honor for me to be part of this program. I got to tell you, I met you a few months ago, and the first thing that popped up about you was that sharp bow tie that you had on. And I know that's part of your signature clothing items. And
Oh, yeah.
Right today. I don't know what's going on. Maybe your finals are coming up, and
I just felt like relaxing today.
Good. And also, I gotta tell you, I'm very impressed with what you're doing as a student. When I met you, I thought you're a chiropractor practicing already, and to see you do this as a student, I gotta tell you, you're a pioneer. And I'm so happy and honored to be sharing with you and the Pediatric Summit and everyone else who's gonna be in this program. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Karlos, let's get right down to it. The entrepreneurial spirit of chiropractic, that's so important in business and having a business mindset. What would you say is the most important factor in building a successful subluxation-based chiropractic office?
Well, Caleb, when it comes to science, art, and philosophy of chiropractic, those chiropractors who are strongest in philosophy by far have the most robust and successful practices worldwide. And also, when it comes to philosophy, science, and art of chiropractic, philosophy happens to be the weakest area of them. And those chiropractors who make an effort to get stronger in philosophy, they do better than everyone else. And that's why it's inspiring to participate in programs like this, because we all can be better in philosophy. You know, I graduated from chiropractic college in 2004. And in fact, it's been 11 years. May was 11 years. And being a father, a husband, a neighbor, an entrepreneur has given me fresh insight into values that we all share. Values that brings us together in programs like this. I believe we're all in this together as one humanity, and that we have an obligation to leave this world a better place for our children and their children's children. And I believe that us human beings are innately driven to succeed. We all want our tomorrow to be better than today. But unfortunately, society sucks that energy and desire out of us. It tells us that we shouldn't take responsibility for our future. And I think us chiropractors and chiropractic students that are watching right now, more than any other time, we should take responsibility for our profession. And I think starts with taking responsibility for our purpose. It's been said for many years that we all have been blessed with some special gifts and talents, and that we all have a purpose that we are here to share with each other. And I think those of us who don't do the grueling work of mastering our talents and discovering that purpose are ripping off the world. And unfortunately, many chiropractors, they are unaware of some basic fundamental principles of business or axioms of business, and that's what stops them from achieving their goals and their practice dreams. And my simple goal today is to share some of those principles or axioms and help everyone to have a better and more successful practice.
Absolutely. There's different principles of life, principles of chiropractic, and principles of business. A lot of times those don't really mesh together too well. So you have to really think about which principles you align with and how you use those in practice to be congruent.
Absolutely. You know, in the past few months, I've had many chiropractors come into my office and visit my offices. And within the first few minutes of meeting them, one of the first questions I'll ask them is that, have you ever read any of the green books? or do you own any green books? And ironically enough, some of them are seasoned practitioners in practice for 20 years or more. Some of them are just recent graduates or students, and they'll say either they've never read a green book or they own green books but never read it. You know, they asked BJ Palmer in one of the books I read, in one of the green books, and they asked him, why do some chiropractors succeed when they leave school and some fail? And he said, the reason for that is because most chiropractors end up in chiropractic colleges with a medical mindset. And you got to realize that in those days, most chiropractors were actually were first generation chiropractors. And even now, I know many students, including myself, I went to chiropractic college not knowing what chiropractic was. And he said, most chiropractors enter school with a medical mindset and they hear about this chiropractic philosophy or chiropractic mindset. And there begins the internal battle. How much of this chiropractic philosophy could they accept? How much of this medical philosophy should they discard? And ultimately, having that certainty that chiropractic adjustments have a huge impact on humanity and allowing us to express ourselves the way it was intended to be, and accepting that with certainty, what defines the size of your practice.
Absolutely.
Interesting enough, he talked about that it's not the profession that fails, it's the one who professes the profession fails. There are failures in medicine. There are failures in engineering. There are failures in law. So again, it's not the practitioner so much as it's his certainty or her certainty on chiropractic. So the second we can understand that simple concept and gain certainty on our philosophy, our entire practice style will shift. The Association of Chiropractic Colleges defines chiropractic as a science, an art, and philosophy. In fact, they use a triangle to describe that. And they say each corner represents one of those things. One is for philosophy, one is for art, one is for science. In my opinion, philosophy is the foundation, and the science and art are what built upon that philosophy. I believe that we need sciences, we need to do research, and we need to, discover all the research material that we can find in chiropractic. I believe we should become better technicians and better adjusters. But ultimately, if we have that philosophy, we'll take the science, we'll take the research, and apply it within chiropractic philosophy. Become better practitioners by mastering our art of adjusting and apply that within chiropractic philosophy.
Absolutely. Like that is one of the biggest things I like to push. I love kids. I love pediatrics. My office is going to be as many kids as possible, but a lot of like things that we put on, it's not even really about kids yet, because you have to have the philosophy to even want to go that route. And so that's one of the reasons why you're on.
Absolutely. I got to tell you, Caleb, one of the most incredible moment practice is when you have parents bringing a child to you and trusting you with that child and asking you to deliver that adjustment. And you are, again, you're far ahead of the game. The fact that you want to have pediatric practice, and you're going to do well, my friend.
Thank you. I hope so.
You will.
So on the topic of philosophies, what or principles rather, what are some business principles you think you could share with us for our time here tonight?
Okay. There are various principles, and if it's okay with you and the audience, I'd like to maybe incorporate some slides in here to give a little more visual mass as to what we're talking about. Although I'm sure everyone likes to see my face, maybe the slides might be better. All right. So we're going to try to see the screen share, and let's go into some of these slides, okay?
All right, absolutely. And
all right, so some of the principles that I like to talk about. Can you see that screen right now? I want to make
sure. I can. You are on.
What's that?
I can. It's
All
on
right.
PowerPoint.
So we're going to talk about rational-based decisions. We're going to talk about putting structure into the practice. And we're going to talk about how to recruit talent, how to train them, and how to manage them. Now, one of the principles, and this is not just in chiropractic per se, it's in business and actually in life. I believe that we always want to make rational decisions. However, when we make irrational decisions, Caleb, we feel guilty and horrible because we went against our true nature. And when it comes to business, irrational decisions reduce the survival and viability of the business. Typically, we make irrational decisions. It's because we have a problem, but we don't have a solution to the problem. We have a problem, but we have no solution to the problem. And from not having a solution to the problem, we won't choose an irrational or illogical solution to solve that problem. In chiropractic practice, for instance, there are some practitioners who are faced with this problem: not enough new patients. Their solution is to offer services at a reduced rate. In their mind, they're coming from a place of service, thinking, well, I'm a chiropractor. I've been placed on, I've been chosen to do this profession, and I'm supposed to serve and give. And you're supposed to do that, absolutely. But by doing that, some chiropractors violate the basic principle in business, and that's fair exchange. Because when you operate that way, you're going to damage the entire structure of the business. Now, I want to talk about another principle in business, and that is the moment you make irrational decisions in one area of practice, that creates a downward spiral. What that means, you end up making more irrational decisions and you lose control. So for those of us, those chiropractors who are in practice right now, and they feel like there are some areas of their practice currently that they're out of control, they've lost control, chances are they made some irrational decisions along the way. So one way to inspect is to go back and look at what kind of processes or procedures you have in your practice. And if the practice is stuck, look at your decisions that you made. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. Yes. Like I like to do a lot of audio books, and one of the biggest ones that I've listened to recently was the E-Myth. And they talk, it's got to be, you have to have a rational way of thinking, you have to have a set program, a set way to do things, a set way to answer these questions. That way you don't do them irrationally.
Absolutely. And again, we're innately programmed to be rational and make logical decisions. And the problem is that the moment we make one irrational decision, it becomes a downward spiral and we lose control. And then we end up being this place of chaos and confusion, which is so anti-chiropractic.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So what are some of the things you do to keep from making that first irrational decision?
I'm sorry?
What is something, a way that you keep yourself from making that first irrational decision?
Well, again, let me just come back. Let me turn the slide off again.
All right.
Again, ultimately, lack of knowledge results in irrational decisions. So first thing is to recognize that we've gone this path of downward spiral, recognizing we lost control. So if any area of practice, whether it's in terms of marketing, finances, managing the staff, if we feel like we've lost control, we got to realize that along the way, somewhere along the way, we start making some irrational decisions. That's the first thing. Second thing we have to recognize is that chances are it's because we didn't have the knowledge, proper knowledge, how to handle that area of the practice.
Okay.
Now, I know so many chiropractors, so many, in fact, entrepreneurs who have very successful businesses or successful practices. But the moment something happens, they get a divorce, they get hurt, they get injured, or they get ill, there goes the practice. And that's because they did not build a productive, profitable, viable, sellable practice. My philosophy is that we should always build a practice that's profitable, viable, and sellable. Now, you don't have to agree with me, but the idea is this, that it's going to take anywhere from 3 to 7 to 10 years to build a very successful practice. It's going to take you 8 to 10 hours a day probably to do that. If you're going to do that, you might as well build an entity. See, most chiropractors, and again, I'm talking with some of the successful chiropractors, they have a practice, and the practice feeds their lifestyle. That means they buy a house, buy a car, and they're basically it's their business. And that's one sure way of really pissing off the employees and the executives. Because when you go around and talking about that this is my business and this is all about me, then your employees, they don't have a clear vision as to where the company is going. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. Yes.
So my comment is that you shouldn't be Mr. Incredible. Rather, you should think about as an inclusive, including all the aspects of all the employees and the executives in your team. Think about it. If you were to be this Mr. Incredible and talk about that this is my business, it's all about me, you won't be able to attract the kind of employees that would run your company for you. My offices, they run on their own. I don't have to be there. In fact, if God forbid, if something were happening to me right now, my colleagues and my employees could pick up the business and sell it or keep running it and serving the community with quality care chiropractic without me having to be there. And that's because of those principles that are engaged and implemented in the business. So again, the idea is that you want to have a business that's structured, that is not just about the owner, but it actually has executives who are running the company without the owner being there. In fact, I want to show you the next slide, and the next slide will make more sense as to what I'm talking about here. All right, so can you see this one here? I want to make sure you see that business principles, business owner. Good.
Yes, sir.
So as a business owner, your job is to be the goal finder and the dreamer. That's all you're supposed to be doing. As a business owner, you should not be involved in managing, and you should definitely not be involved in doing the work. That means if as a chiropractor, in your office, you're the one who's doing all the initial consultations, if you're the one who's doing all the x-rays and doing the scans and Titron scans or whatever type of diagnostic testing you're doing, and if you're the one who's asking for referrals and going outside and doing outside lectures or in-office lectures, that means at that moment, you're just an employee and you're not the owner. And again, to be able to create an expanding, viable, profitable organization, you got to think about from being an owner, not an employee. And I got to tell you, you can't be both. You got to be either or.
Yeah, that's another thing that the E-Myth Revisited also agrees with you on.
All right. Now, another thing I want to talk about having structure in your practice. So many chiropractors are structured chiropractors. Now, if there is no structure in an organization, that results in overworked, underproducing staff. If in your offices, again, this is for chiropractors who have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 employees. If you see your staff are overworked or there's a high turnover, chances are there is no structure, there is no organization in your practice. I want to pull up this screen now to talk about that. So when it comes to organizing your practice, you should always start with the end in mind. I'm sure we heard those things before. Now, what does that mean? You should start with the end product. What's the final product that your business is supposed to be producing? Obviously, in a chiropractic office, will be happy, healthy patients who have a healthier spine, who are expressing their life to the fullest potential. Now, or if you look at it from a bigger perspective, from business perspective, will be a viable practice who's profitable and is sellable. So when there is no structure, then again, you end up with a practice that is not growing. One of the things that I want to show in here is an example of a structure chart in our offices. We have created a structure chart that's comprised of 7 divisions, and each division is responsible for creating or producing a very specific product. I like to use a pizza store analogy if I could, and I know that sometimes people don't like that when I use this analogy comparing the chiropractic office to a pizza store, but if you own a pizza shop, the final product of a pizza store will be what? Caleb, put you on pizza, right?
Yes.
A good quality pizza. Now, if you were to put departments in that pizza store, there will be one department in charge of making the dough, right? And the final product of that department will be a dough that's well made. Another department will be in charge of spreading the dough, and the end product of that department will be a dough that's well spread. If there was another department and it was in charge of putting the sauce, the product of that department will be a dough that's well spread and it's got even amount of sauce on the dough. And it will be another department put in charge of putting the toppings on, and another department in charge of putting the pie in the oven. And then finally comes out a pizza that has it's good quality and has value. Same thing applies in a chiropractic office. When you meet patients or prospective patients, I like to think of them as a white flower. That means their understanding on chiropractic is very minimal. Now, you have to have the specific ingredients and the proper communication skills to be able to introduce chiropractic to them, that they understand that they need to have their spine checked and to come into your office. So as that person goes to the various divisions of the practice, their understanding on chiropractic grows, and by the time they get to the end result, it's a patient who understands they need to have chiropractic as part of their lifestyle, and having a healthy spine is so much better for them. So again, it's taking patients through these processes and making sure you end up with a patient who has a full picture. Now that applies from patients, but the same thing applies to your staff and the employees. One of the things that's definitely missing, and I know this is having talked to a lot of chiropractors, is that we have no proper training for office staff. I know that many times I hear chiropractors, they'll hire a new employee and the training is pretty much putting the person at the front desk and give him a verbal training right there for a few minutes and expecting the CA to become a miracle worker. Well, it doesn't work that way. In fact, I want to go back to this chart in here. So, for instance, in Division 1 of our organization, there is an entire section dedicated to training and hiring staff. So when it comes to creating a company that's going to be run remotely, that means without you having to be there, there are main criteria that you have to follow through. and they are hiring, training, and managing. And if you have those concepts down, then you'll be able to create a company that's running remotely without you having to be involved in it. I know that I'm giving you a lot of information. It is a lot of information, but I'm trying to bring in some slides to, be more mass or reality.
I missed those two last words. You kind of cut out on me.
Okay. I know that I'm giving information, visual aids to the audience so they can sort of understand.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So you were still kind of cutting out a little bit, but I got the gist of it. So I lost the screen. There you go. There it is. So you said it was recruiting and hiring, training, and what was the last one you said?
Managing.
Managing. Okay, great. Yes. So for recruiting or hiring, what would you say your best? Where is my? There we go. Can you talk about your recruiting process?
Sure. So listen, when it comes to recruiting or run a chiropractic office from this mindset, I say that being a chiropractor from being a chiropractic entrepreneur is like being a blunt pencil architect, which is a pretty good definition of what an entrepreneur is. That a blunt pencil architect will go to the end of the horizon, look for people with technical and sales skills, and bring them on board and have them grasp on this vision, and then train them and get out of their way and let them run the company. So in those 7 divisions that I show you in our offices, to hire one person for each one of those divisions, sometimes I will go through 100 people to find that one perfect candidate. Now, wow. Some of the processes that's involved in there is that I will not hire anyone with an IQ of less than 120 and aptitude scores of 65. Now, the process is obviously pretty in-depth. The recruiting process starts with that. And typically when I place an ad, Caleb, the title of the ad is always in sales or business development. In my opinion, if you're working in a chiropractic office, you have to be a salesperson. BJ talked about this. It said, don't sell the practice, sell the principle. And we need people to comprehend, fall in love with the principles of chiropractic, and sell it to masses. So I always look for salespeople. And as a result of that, my ads are geared towards salespeople. So the whole process starts with placing the ad, and you have to have a very specific job description. Going back to the job description, I said we always want to start with the end in mind. So the job description, for instance, for a marketer is someone who's not afraid of hearing no, someone who's not afraid of rejection, someone who's got a whatever it takes attitude. Once I've got the applicants, I will go through a phone interview. In the phone interview, I'll ask them some very specific questions like what are their viewpoint on chiropractic. I don't want to have anyone working in our offices if they have any type of objection or negative feelings towards chiropractic. Once we go to the phone interview, we'll have them come in for a group interview. And during the group interview, we'll ask them to fill out a very brief questionnaire. And the questionnaire is actually, the questions are given to them right after we do a brief introduction about the office. So we talk about our purpose as to what we're trying to accomplish in the office. And right after that, we'll give them a questionnaire. And we'll screen them right off the bat. I'm looking for someone who's got neat handwriting, someone who is obviously presenting themselves well, and I'm looking for right off the bat proper communication skills. Once we go through that, we'll do the first interview. The first interview questions, I like to ask some situational questions. Questions like, tell me about in your last job when you heard one of your coworkers say something negative about another coworker, and how did you handle that? I would ask him to sell me a TV. For instance, we'll be in an interview room, and there might be a TV like this, and I'll ask him, go on and sell me that TV. I want to put them on a spot. I want to see how they handle themselves. If they get to the first interview, at that point, I'll do the IQ testing, the aptitude testing, and the personality testing. And it's very, very intriguing that there are times that we'll find candidates that they have very high IQ scores, yet they have very low communication skills. So again, to find that talent that's going to be able to run your organization for you, you're going to have to do some work. Does it make sense? Are you with me?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've definitely seen the hiring process for a lot of practices, and none of them are really that in depth. It's you find somebody. Most people actually that what I've heard is say they hire a patient, a previous patient, so that they know that they are committed to that. But yeah, effectiveness, that doesn't necessarily mean they're effective at their job.
It's true. You know, you can hire a patient, and chances are they're very driven for chiropractic. But again, that's the next component that we're going to talk about. We talk about recruiting, and there's a training component. And the training is very important, because I can go ahead and hire someone with a high IQ, great aptitude scores, and great personality. But if I don't provide them the proper training, that person is not going to want to stick around in my company. Because again, us human beings, we always want to do better. We always want to do better in our future. So if I hire someone of that caliber who's intelligent and he wants to do better in life, and if I don't provide them with proper training, guess what they're going to do? They're going to quit. So that's where it comes back on the proper training material. Most chiropractors, I'm going to go up to the slide in here, is that what they do is they recruit, they do improper training, they put no time into the staff member, they tolerate them, they terminate, and starts. Talk about tolerating. I was talking to a chiropractor a few months ago, and he says, listen, I gotta let you go because I have to go and pick up my staff. I said, what do you mean you have to go pick up your staff? He goes, well, she was coming to work late, and my solution was that I'm going to go pick her up every time, you know, between her shifts. I'm like, that's unbelievable. Imagine tolerating that much slack from your staff. That's because probably you didn't hire the right person, and definitely you didn't train them properly. So the proper cycle for that is recruit, hire, train, apprentice, utilize, and get them to produce for you. Now, when it comes to training, it's one of the most important aspects of creating office staff who are going to take over the company and run the company for you. When I hire someone for marketing, for instance, I'll train them in our training room, in our training facility here, for probably 2 weeks, from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And they will be there in that training room for 2 weeks. And by the time they leave the training room and they go out, they can generate anywhere from 5 to 7 new patients a week. And that's after 2 weeks of full training. When we hire someone at the front desk, for instance, they will not sit behind the front desk for at least 2 weeks. I mean, they'll get trained in the training room with specific training manuals. Well, I'll show you some of those in a moment, For instance, they'll know exactly how to handle every single call, every scenario that comes up. What do they say if a patient says, I don't feel like coming in today? What happens if a patient says, oh, do I have to go to the healthcare class? What happens if the patient doesn't want to, if they have a balance outstanding, and so on and so forth. So all those scenarios are written out in a course format that the CAs will get training, and by the time they're ready to go on their post, they can produce and they can get phenomenal production. Here, let me show you one of those training manuals. I think will be a good thing for others to see. I had a few chiropractors come to my office, and they want to know about how the training manuals are organized. All right, so this is not working, but anyways, sorry, this is not allowing me to pull it up. The training that we have created in here, are written like a course format. That means the CA will start the course program, and at the end of every section, there are quizzes they take, there are videos they watch, and by the time they've gone through the training manual, again, they can duplicate everything in the manual and get results. What I mean by results, by actually producing very specific product in that division or whatever part of the company they're working for.
Yeah, I'm sure the work that you guys put into each new hire, new team member, that really has to pay off way more. Like, you put a little more effort into hiring and training, and then I'm sure the work environment is amazing there.
It is. Well, it definitely is. Again, some of the effort that goes into it also is in the personal development, and I think that's the next thing I'd like to talk about. So we've talked about recruiting, training, and next important thing is actually managing your employees. The way we like to manage is objectively based on statistics, and that way there are no emotions involved. So that means is that everyone is in charge of very specific stats, and we graph the stats. So there's all line graphs. So if the graph is going up, that means they're making more rational decisions and they're following through the procedures. And if this graph is going down, that means they're maybe making some irrational decisions and they're not following through their training. And the beautiful thing about that is they can debug different areas of practice and identify exactly where the problem is. So if a marketer is not bringing 7 new patients a week, we can look at them, whether or not are they making rational decisions. And if they're not, is it because of lack of knowledge? Do they need more training? Or do they end up in this downward spiral where they've lost control? And same thing applies in all aspects of the office. One of the things that I like to talk about being an executive is somebody who can take responsibility for a job, and also somebody can get others people to get the work done. Again, that goes back to the original slide that I started talking about, that as a business owner, you should not be doing the work. As a business owner, your job is to be the dreamer and the goal finder. The executive should manage the company, and the employees should be doing the work. So an executive is someone who takes responsibility and runs the company for you. And when you operate like that, you end up with some statistics, and you manage everything with statistics sort of like this. So you can see that various aspects of the practice are run by statistics, and we can look in an area, find out where the problem is, and solve it objectively, not so much emotionally.
Yeah, that definitely, for me, what I hear is a smoother work environment, a smoother practice. Just everybody knows what they're doing. It's just, I feel like it's way more effective, and that's what you're saying.
It sure is. It definitely is. It actually becomes fun. It ends up being fun, and everyone's working congruently. Everyone's on purpose, and you can see that we're growing as a community, as an industry in the company. What I mean by that we provide training on communication skills, improving their personal, their areas that are personally their weak. We put them through specific courses that they become better at it. Their communication improves, and ultimately the practice grows, and that ends up expanding where you can have multiple practices without having to be in every single one of them. It ends up being a systems-based practice. So it's very systematically run. It's a principal chiropractic office with systems and obviously with communications and training that allows this machine to run and serve mass number of patients and get phenomenal results for the patients and for the staff. I always talk about, if you look at this, a company that's system-based, I like to fly planes, and I like to use the analogy of a plane. When you fly in a plane, there are two wings to it. And in a business, the same idea. One wing are the patients or the customers, and another wing is their employees, and they both have the balance. If they're both balanced, and this thing is taken off. Otherwise, it's not growing, and it's just not, it crashes.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned running these systems through multiple practices. How many practices do you have?
I currently have 4 practices, and
Okay.
there are all throughout Connecticut. And again, the way the systems are, Caleb, is that the practices run without me having to be there. But that's what I'm doing with the doctors in each one of those practices. I'm actually training them to be able to do the exact same thing that I'm doing. That means giving them executive skills where at one point they can decide, by implementing this kind of systems, you get what I call financial and time freedom. Because when your time is freed up, then you can do whatever you like with your time. That means you can spend time with your family, or you can go out and give it back to profession, or you can have multiple practices. So I'm taking on these chiropractors and helping them, first thing first, giving them training to grow their practices. But secondly, they're going to learn and develop skills of running their practice without having to be there themselves, and they can have multiple practices.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense. For me, in the future, I would love to get in the political realm later after becoming successful, hopefully. Did I hear that you were joining the Connecticut board next year?
I am actually. I am appointed as a member of a board of examiners in Connecticut. Yes.
That's awesome. And
Yes.
so, like a lot of people, I know some other board members, and they have their full-time practice, and they have to close down on Fridays to go do their duties as a board member.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I got to tell you that it gives me great honor to serve our profession, and yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about having systems-based practice that allows you to really free up your time and give back, whether it's your family, profession, or whatever you like.
Cool. That's awesome. Dr. Boghosian, how do people get a hold of you?
All right, well,
Like
let's
to
see.
ask
I'll
you
put
questions
that
or
up. I'll put this up for you real quick. They can get a hold of me through my email, kboghosian@cchartford.com, and or they can call me 203-520-2211.
Great. That's awesome. I know that I've definitely learned a lot tonight. It's really good to hear somebody actually get to meat and potatoes of what you're supposed to do, rather than kind of dance around and tell you, you know, you need to have procedures, you need to have procedures, you need to have procedures, but then don't really like go into what kind of procedures, exactly what kind of procedures are you talking about. And I mean, everybody wants to answer the phone at maybe a different way, maybe not that deep, but you know, I really enjoy the depth that we got tonight. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. It's I got to tell you, so it's my pleasure. I talk about, speaking of procedures, I talk about that knowledge is not just the key to success. If knowledge was key to success, then all college professors would be multimillionaires. See, knowledge is everywhere. I mean, you and I right now could go and Google something right now, and even within chiropractic, we can find the best procedures and best manuals. And it's not just the manuals, or it's not the knowledge itself that equates to success. See, it's applied knowledge, and it takes time and effort and energy to apply the knowledge and become master of that knowledge. So, when you say, I'm sharing some in-depth information, believe me, in the short amount of time that we have, it's almost impossible. What I like to do, whether it's the Pediatric Summit or anywhere else, is that I'll be more than glad to have people, chiropractors, to come by and visit the office, and I can spend as much time as they like to go through the various aspects of practice and show them how they can have if they want to, this type of a system in their individual practices.
That sounds amazing. That I would definitely take you up on that opportunity.
Yeah. Well,
great.
Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to be with you, and I know that you said you might be in this area in July, so I'm going to hold you to that.
Okay, I will do.
Good.
It was good talking to you. I hope you have a good night. Thank you so much for joining us. For everybody that's looking in right now, we're going to be posting onto our YouTube channel immediately after this. So definitely watch it again if you missed the beginning. Watch it again if you didn't miss anything. It's going to be phenomenal. And always remember, September 25th and 26th, this is the Pediatric Summit. You should definitely join. It's going to be amazing down in Atlanta. All right, Dr. Boghosian. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Dr. Caleb Tabia, and good luck with your finals next week.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.